Did you know there are 34,000 NGOs costing the Irish taxpayer €6 billion every single year? And if you have an issue with mass immigration in your community, there's not one who you can call on. Hi there, welcome to the Politics Podcast. Happy New Year to ye. I am back. I took a little break, but I am here to bring you all the latest news and views from X. And first of all, we are going to talk about the NGO industrial complex, which is a massive industry in itself. And I don't think we think about it often enough. We know there's an immigration industrial complex with iPass owners and hotel owners and greedy landlords, but we don't think of the other side of the coin, which is the NGO sector. So tonight we're going to talk about it very, very quickly. So I want to play you something from Marco Rubio, who is the Secretary of State with Donald Trump's American administration. And you might wonder, what has that got to do with the NGO sector in Ireland? Well, it just happens that they have copped on. They have copped on to the woke NGOs now I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the charities and the sports clubs here. I'm talking specifically here tonight about the ones that are set up solely on the basis of immigration and of mass immigration continuing into Ireland. And Marco Rubio is talking here about the NGO sector, and he's talking about the Venezuelan issue. So I'll play it for you now, because after I had heard that on X, I saw that Neil Richmond, who is Minister and TD for Dublin in our government, he made an announcement that they were giving 100 million extra to the NGOs. And I just thought it was absolutely such a contrast that the Americans have copped on, the American government has copped on. Our government are going deeper into the NGO industrial complex after promising last year, when the referendum failed on them, the mother in the home and the care referendum failed for them, with all the NGOs in Ireland advocating a yes, yes, we all went out and voted no, no. So then they realised, hang on, the NGO sector that we are funding does not represent the ordinary Irish person on the street. So I'll play you what Marco Rubio said, and then I'll show you what Neil Richmond announced on X.
The United States has spent billions of dollars over the years in helping with health strategies all across the world. What we learned over time, and especially after coming here, is that oftentimes, and I'm oversimplifying it, but this is an accurate description, what would happen is we would go to a country and say, we're going to help you with our health care needs. Then we would drive over to Northern Virginia somewhere, find an NGO, one of these organizations, give them all the money, tell them go to this country and do their health care program for them. That NGO would then take about some percentage of that money for their overhead and administrative costs. And by the time it got down to it, the host country had very little influence. It was sort of imposed on them. And only a percentage of the overall money ever actually reached the patients and the people on the ground that we were trying to help because of these costs. This makes no sense. So why are we hiring American and international NGOs to go into other countries and run healthcare systems that are parallel and sometimes in conflict with the healthcare systems of the host country? If we're trying to help countries, help the country. Don't help the NGO to go in and find a new line of business. And so that's what the model that we're breaking. We're not doing this anymore. We are not going to spend billions of dollars funding the NGO industrial complex while close and important partners like Kenya are either have no role to play or have very little influence over how healthcare money is being spent. Bottom line is, if you want to help a country, work with that country.
So there you go. If you want to help a country, work with the country, or in our case, if you want to help people, work with the people. We don't need these inflated NGOs, as he said, taking salaries, expenses, travel expenses, and God only knows what else, what other overheads they're putting in, and very little left for the people that they are claiming. But in the case of the immigration NGOs, they are totally reliant on mass immigration continuing, and they will do everything that they can, including turning up at counter-protests against Irish communities, calling them racist and xenophobe and bigots and blah, 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 blah. They will do everything they can because their whole livelihoods depends on mass immigration continuing into Ireland. And as I said, our government had copped on. That's why I was so shocked to see the extra 100 million announced. And he announced it so happily, and that people would be happy when they saw his post as if people would be happy. And of course, his comments were off. And this is something that these politicians are continuously doing. They are leaving their comments off, which is a thing you can do on X. So you put a post up and you have the opportunity then to turn off comments that you cannot get anyone asking you questions. And as public representatives, they absolutely should never be allowed to do that. They should not be allowed to turn their comments off. And I'll just play you Peter Burke TD, who last year said they were going to sort out and weed out the NGOs who did not represent the ordinary Irish people. And they have not done that. In fact, they've got worse. And in fact, there's more NGOs on the block now since he said this. So I'll play you what he said.
Minister Burke, after the referendum, you said that the government would need to take a look at how representative some NGOs were of public sentiment, given that so many of the campaigning NGOs that campaigned strongly for a yes result obviously were wildly out of step with public opinion. Is that still something that you think should be looked at now, several months on, that the referendum has obviously left kind of a long shadow, as it were, on the Irish political landscape? Do you have any thoughts on that still today?
I think as a party and as a government, we really learned from the result of the referendum. We obviously have to focus on so many important issues ahead now in terms of keeping our economy growing, keeping our employment levels up. But absolutely, I think it's very clear that NGOs were out of kilter with what people were thinking, with their views. And it's very important that when an NGO comes forward, that they do represent the cohort that they claim to do so. So I would welcome a review of the NGO sector. I think it would be very important because we have people that are marginalised that do need representation, and I would never ever take away from that. But also you have to understand that many NGOs have a significant ear to the government. Many of them get privileged places to talk to government departments. It's important that they do reflect their members, they do reflect what their sector is thinking, and they reflect what people are thinking on the ground. I did speak at that point in time, the roster of NGOs that did support the referendum. It was significant, and obviously we've changed tack since then. We're very clear now as a government that we're focusing on the nuts and bolts, getting down, ensuring that we're building up 57,000 houses commenced as the 1st of January, ensuring we're keeping our economy employed. We have record levels of employment, record opportunity, and that's what we're focused on now on the next horizon.
OK, folks, we have to leave there. So thank you.
OK, so he says the change in tack. And if Peter Burke, if you ever see this, I'm not sure how giving 100 million extra to NGOs is changing tack. You are not dealing with it at all. You have not copped on like the American government have copped on. And the ordinary Irish taxpayer, I think, has had enough. Because when I put any post up, I put shocking that Neil Richmond would say that he would give another 100 million. I said when people can't afford a fill of oil, of home heating oil, they gave nothing in the budget for the ordinary working man and woman in the country. And yet they can throw 100 million extra, as I said, into a €6 billion industrial complex, an NGO industrial complex. Now, I'll give you a little example of what I'm talking about. There is an NGO called the Irish Refugee Council. It's headed by a man called Nick Henderson. And last year he was on RTE's Primetime, and Miriam O'Callaghan was interviewing him regarding immigration into the country. I'll let you listen for yourselves what he said on Primetime.
People coming from Ireland, which is shameful and completely unethical and contrary to our legal obligations. And I think it's also a symptom of a failure of other government departments to support the Department of Integration.
Do you think there should be any limits on the number of people who can come into this country for asylum?
We don't, and I'd say this for two reasons, because we have a fundamental legal obligation to support and give consideration. Doesn't mean that they will stay here permanently to an asylum application. It's also worth putting in context the number of people who come here. About 1% of European Union refugees, the asylum applicants in Europe, come to Ireland, and we have about 1.5% of the population. We're taking a small proportion of Europe's refugees, and Europe takes a small proportion of the world's refugees.
What routes are left? You try the legal route that failed.
OK, so there you have it. Shocking piece on RTE Primetime last year. And if you were an ordinary person sitting at home and have no clue, you'd listen to that man and you say, wow. Ooh. Irish Refugee Council, first of all. Irish Refugee Council representing immigrants into Ireland. And our Taoiseach Micheál Martin has already clarified that 81% are economic migrants. So they are not refugees as we know it, as we've always known it. They are not refugees, the immigrants that are coming to the country now, 81%. If it's so tiny, Nick Henderson, then how come we have so many NGOs representing these people? Costing millions to the Irish taxpayer. And he said that it's not as if they stay here indefinitely, when that is also false. Helen McEntee, when she was Minister for Justice, clarified on RTE Radio 1 that in 2023 alone, 7,300 deportation orders were issued and only 89 people left. So that is absolutely, I think we were all dumbstruck when we heard that. If you happen to have your ears open that day to hear that, I think Brian Dobson, he's retired now, but even he was silent for a minute. 7,300 deportation orders issued and only 89 people left. So yes, they do stay indefinitely, because when their asylum appeal is rejected, there's another NGO waiting in the shadows only to run and help them appeal after appeal, infinity appeals, until such time that they get to stay here anyway, and help them with the legal costs or whatever to fight the state and to fight the Irish taxpayer. So that's it. And he said there should be the worst thing about that, he said there should be no limit to the amount of immigrants that come to the country. And he said it unchallenged by Miriam O'Callaghan, sitting there staring at him and going on to the next subject without saying, whoa, what did you say? What did you say? There should be no limit. We have a housing crisis. We have a homelessness crisis. We have record waiting lists. 48 people died last week waiting for surgeries and for cancelled surgeries. We have people who can't afford home heating oil, as I've said. We have a crisis. The country is in crisis, Nick Henderson of the Irish Refugee Council, and you said we should have no limit to the amount of people that come into the country. What kind of madness is that to go unchallenged on the national broadcaster? We're not surprised. We are not surprised anymore, RTE, but it's still shocking. We're not surprised, but it's still shocking. And as I said, these NGOs, so the Irish taxpayer is in the middle and has nobody to represent them, nobody. When you come to mass immigration, they have nobody to represent them. So they have a wave of mass immigration coming into the country this side, and on this side, when the Irish taxpayer rises up and says something about it and tries to get help, the politicians are useless. They're about as useful as a chocolate teapot, as I always say. They are just absolutely useless. And they get together themselves. They might have a community representative among themselves, someone who's able to talk for them. And then you get the NGOs come in. If there's like a protest or a meeting among the community, you have on this side the NGOs who come in, and they are including in that, I'm including Sinn Féin, People Before Profit, the trade unions. They come along and they start shouting at the poor Irish taxpayer who has the weight of the world on their shoulders. They shout. The people that are paying, the Irish taxpayer is paying the salaries of these NGOs, and these NGOs have the audacity to come to local protests and shout every name under the sun, racists, xenophobes, bigots, at the poor Irish taxpayer who has nobody to stand up for them. As I said, there isn't one NGO for the taxpayer, not one, that they can call if they have concerns with mass immigration. So the word has got out. The word has got out as far as Africa. Because I'm going to play you a piece that was on a few years ago. It was a UN Human Rights Council meeting. And back then, I'm not sure what year it was, but this African lady, wait till you hear her. You will giggle, even though it's not a funny, laughing matter, but you have no choice but to laugh with this woman. And she's absolutely right. Let's hear what she says.
Chairman, I would like to extend greetings to the very balanced delegation of Ireland, and also to the representatives of Irish civil society. I have a question to the Minister. In your country, is each person member of an NGO? Because given the large number of representatives who have come just on the subject of racial discrimination, it seems to me that there must be a lot of NGOs, and I'm convinced that that must be the case.
Yes, lady, you're right. We're convinced that's the case as well. And here to hear what she said on the subject of racial discrimination. That is the bit that is outrageous among this whole thing. These NGOs are set up specifically on the subject of racial discrimination, of calling the poor Irish taxpayer racist. These are the NGOs, as Peter Burke told us, have the ear of the government. They sit at a privileged place at the government table when they have these meetings. Can you imagine what they talk about? They've convinced the government, actually, to bring into schools the teaching of white privilege, teaching poor little Irish children that they have white privilege. It's absolutely outrageous, and that lady is 100% correct. She said, is every person in Ireland in an NGO? And that's what it's like. No, they wouldn't have us. They only want the woke of the woke. The wokest of the woke. They wouldn't have us. But she is correct. That's how outrageous it is. And it's got worse since that lady was speaking at that UN Council meeting. So that's what I wanted to bring you tonight, guys. Please be aware when you see these groups and these NGOs in the mainstream media, on our national broadcaster, talking junk like that guy did, that there should be no limit. And the way he said it, and he said it unchallenged by Miriam McCallaghan and the producers of RTE and Primetime and the news, we've had it. We're sick of it. We need that audit. We need that change of tack. Peter Burke, TD. Neil Richmond, you're outrageous that you made that announcement, that 100 million extra, while so many people are struggling, while there was nothing in the budget for the ordinary working man and woman of the country. So share the information in this video to your family and friends and work colleagues. Tell them about the channel. Tell them about X. Set up an X account if you haven't done so already. If you don't feel like doing that, I'm going to be here. I'm looking forward to this new year of bringing you all the latest news from X. And this is the year we find out about the NGO industrial complex in Ireland. And it's the year that you guys find out about it and you guys talk about it and let it be a topic of discussion wherever you go, because it's outrageous. It's outrageous. Thanks, guys. See you on the next one. And like, subscribe and share this video. Take care. Bye-bye.